Welcome, everyone, and happy holidays. Before we dive into today's episode, let's take a moment to celebrate a festive classic because today is National Eggnog Day. Eggnog is one of those drinks that instantly brings the holiday spirit to life. Rich, creamy, and spiced with nutmeg, it's been warming hearts and glasses for centuries. The origins of eggnog date back to medieval Britain, where a similar drink called posset was made with hot milk, spices, and ale or wine. Over time, it evolved into the luxurious egg-based beverage that we know today. When eggnog made its way to the American colonies, it gained popularity thanks to the abundance of dairy and eggs, and of course, the addition of rum and other spirits helped make it a holiday favorite. These days, eggnog can be enjoyed in a variety of ways, whether you prefer the traditional boozy version or a non-alcoholic take that the whole family can enjoy. And let's not forget the endless creative spins on eggnog. Versions made with almond or oat milk, eggnog-inspired lattes, and even eggnog-flavored desserts. It's no wonder this timeless treat has its own special day to shine. So, whether you're sipping a homemade glass of eggnog by the fire or enjoying a festive cup from your favorite cafe, take a moment to toast this holiday classic today. And with that, let's jump into today's episode. Cheers! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, craft spirit enthusiasts, and those interested in the intoxicating world of craft distilleries, cideries, meaderies, wineries, and the occasional foray into breweries. It's Rich Shane, and welcome to Fermented Adventure, the podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people that are making the mash, fermenting, distilling, bottling, pouring, and delivering to you some of the finest libations in the world. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. Thank you for bringing the podcast into wherever you are and whatever you're doing. We truly are grateful that you have chosen to listen and make us part of your day. It would mean the world to us if you left a 5-star review. This helps us climb in the rankings and it makes it easier for others to find us. Don't hesitate to leave us your comments as well. If the podcast didn't meet your expectations, tell us why. We're always striving to improve. You can find us at fermentedadventure.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook as Fermented Adventure. Email us at fermentedadventure@gmail.com. All right, FA Nation, let's meet our guest. He's Matthew Tarallo. I'm Rich Shane. This is Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Matthew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate you having me.
I'm excited. We've already had an energetic conversation even before getting to here. We're going to talk Corte Vetusto Mezcal. We're going to talk Matthew Tarallo. How did all this get started for you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. It's good seeing you. Appreciate good being here. So I'll just give a brief kind of background. I come from corporate America, always in corporate brands my whole career. Worked for some fantastic companies like Coca-Cola and British American Tobacco. Like all good marketeers, you always want to do your own thing. So I departed last year and I set out with creating an entity that allowed us to then participate in brands, both brands that we're creating and brands that we're actually acquiring. And Corte Vetusto Mezcal was our first acquisition target. So I was introduced to the brand early last year, fell in love with the liquid, fell in love with the team and the positioning. And for me, it was an absolute no-brainer. So that was my first entryway into Corte Vetusto and haven't looked back since.
I am very certain you've had other opportunities to market, to bring together a relationship and a collaboration with another brand. What did stand out with Corte Vetusto Mezcal that said, this is the one I want to start with?
Yeah, so I think it's important as we think about a portfolio. I come from the world of, I think it's important to have a balanced portfolio of brands that you've built. So you can check the box and say, yes, we built a brand. But the brands that you have, so organic and inorganic, with anything coming from kind of the CPG space, specifically in beverages, the starting point is it has to taste good, right? It has to draw you in. It has to have repeat. It's got to be good liquid. So when I looked at this, it was amazing liquid on the front end. So, okay, great. Yes, you can repackage something. You can make it look pretty. You can bring in a lot of sponsors. But if it doesn't taste good, it doesn't work. So step one for me was, okay, the liquid was incredible for my palate. It was incredible for the palates of others. It's a testament to the awards that we have. And then it talks about, okay, that's step one. Step two would then be, what's the brand look like? What's the positioning? My focus is more on the premium side. That helps the arm that I have in terms of our deployment, plus some of the sponsors that we brought in. So does this brand fit that thesis of that positioning? And when you look at the outlets that the brand's in, specifically across Europe, like the Savoy, like Nobu, that now had a positioning of a brand that had great liquid, great positioning. And then the third part is the team. So we have the co-founder, David Shepard, who started the brand back in 2017. He's also my personal translator every time we go to Oaxaca. So thank you, David. And we have a strong team in place. So for me, it becomes, okay, great liquid, great positioning with a tremendous amount of upside, and a team that's in place that continues to succeed. So that's the rounding three, at least on my side, that says check, check, check. Okay, now how do we deploy our resources? How do we take that vision and that image and now extrapolate it and push it to 1,000? That's now the perfect sauce, at least from my side.
I'm curious to the mindset of Corte Vetusto as an already existing brand.
Yep.
Where they're saying, we understand that we need this collaboration with someone to take us to the next level, to introduce what we have to a broader market versus maybe we're just in Oaxaca. Yep. And in Mexico. And then how do we get our tentacles out to that side? What clicks for them where they say, you know what, Matthew, this is what we need, and we think you're the best vehicle for us to get there?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I would say in my career, I've sat on both sides of the table, investing and then buying from the corporate side. And it's a question that nobody ever looks at. Like, what about the asset, right? There has to be a joint fit from both sides, right? And it has to say, look, I've seen a lot of brands go under because they took the wrong capital with the wrong support, and it's the quickest way to not a good exit. This has to be a marriage on both sides. So here's my vision, here's your vision. How do we jointly come together and make it a reality? So there's obviously things that we can provide, both capital, but also resources and deployment, route to market, go to market. So, you have a brand that has had tremendous success globally. How do we click that up? And then how do we really expand it broader, not just in Europe, but also now in the US? You need expertise, you need capital, you need resources. So for us, when I look at what they've created and what I have, it fit jointly together. But it was that marriage that was complementary on both sides. So it's not just, hey, we're exiting the brand because we want to get a cash out or we want to get a liquidation out. I mean, the team is still in place. And I would say that the best testament of, is this working? And I've seen it so many times where, you have, whether it's a corporate entity, private entity, buys a brand, and they always got to change it, right? Which is not a bad thing, right? You always want to say, oh, we want to reposition it, want to do this. I mean, the brand publicly, officially got transacted over the summer. The brand's going to stay the same. The labeling's going to stay the same. The position's going to stay the same. Like, we're not coming in here saying, okay, yeah, we want our showpiece and we want to spin it. We want to change it. We want to change all the things with it. Like, it's a good brand. You're buying it for a reason. Now you want to inject growth and expertise to help scale it, and it stays the same. So I think that's the probably best testament of saying, is this the right partnership on both sides? And now we're seeing that growth at a brand that is still in existence and still has all the qualities and traits that it once had back in the day.
One of the highlights of your resume that you spoke to is Coca-Cola.
Yep.
From that experience, what do you bring to this brand development, is getting this product out to the world so more people see it and say, that's what I want to be drinking today?
Yeah, so I think, I've been very fortunate in my career, lost my hair a long time ago from it. So there are pros and cons to it, but been very fortunate in my career where I've had some amazing roles in amazing companies. My time at Coke, so I launched and ran our global Amazon business, which included Whole Foods and media. Within there, we brought in a sponsorship for McLaren Formula One. So from my mindset of being over 20 markets globally, of several billion dollars in sales, you know what growth is, and you know what success can look like. And within there, you've built really strong partnerships across different markets for distributors, partners, agencies, sponsors, where you have the components that allow you to take a brand and scale it, right? Now, everything comes with a cost. but you have those components already built. So how do we look at this commercially? And then from a digital side, I think overall, and I should emphasize, I don't come from the alcohol side. My other business is in cannabis, and I joke at times it's easier for me to sell cannabis than alcohol most of the time in the US with our system, which is a good system. So please don't come after me. But I think the market under calls the opportunity with digital. Obviously, that's more of my sweet spot. So how do we take a brand and be able to provide it across coast to coast digitally with that targeted marketing and that consumer experience? So for me, those are the key components that go in there on what does scale look like? What are the right partners that you have that we can push it in there? I mean, case in point, we just officially launched back in the US. We brought in some sponsors from a car club that we're now sponsor of. So it's tapping into that Rolodex of network of support that you can have that easy shift from where we are today and where we want to go tomorrow.
Are you allowed to mention the car club?
Yes. So we're the official spirit partner for the Supercar Owner Circle, which is a private owners club. We just had our big event, their 10th anniversary event in Puglia, Italy, back in September. We're in Italy, so that's a good click for us on both sides. And as you're building this brand that complements it, and I'm clear in the sense of we are a complement to your experience, whether you're a mixologist making some of the best cocktails in the world, or you're a home bartender that you just want a good cocktail to sip on. We're a complement of the experience that you have, and we are a complement for that experience. So that's the position we want to have. Obviously, we have now global reach, global engagement, global eyeballs that we can point to. So it starts pulling into some of those pieces that we can start leveraging from our side.
Target market, consumer experience, the direction could be that you want to put a face or a celebrity to the brand. Curious as to your thoughts about that, especially in the spirits world, the beer world, and how that may come together for Corte Vetusto.
Yeah, I think we look at it and say, I mean, I sit on a couple pathways, right? I mean, I've had brands that may or may not have celebrities tied to it publicly today. So, there's pros because you get a brand out there right off the bat that everybody knows, right? As you see it, and you go into any liquor store today, it's a great time to be a consumer because there's so much product on the market. And it's such a low barrier to entry. Now, it may not be profitable, but it's a low barrier to entry for most of these brands. So from a consumer side, it's incredible because you have an endless variety of products, some incredible products out there. The question always becomes, from my mindset, how do we cut the clutter and have your brand stand out so you can have really exciting packaging, really exciting bottle, or you have a celebrity on there. So I kind of sit from it and say, look, the brand, a celebrity allows you to jump the line a bit of, okay, who are you? Okay, I still don't know who you are, but you have XYZ celebrity on it. That's a good thing. The bad thing is, and as you're seeing this with some of the brands today, it's high risk, high reward. And I think some consumers are starting to see it. I stand by it and say, look, if you have a great product, you want to start building in partners that you can start leveraging, agnostic of a single asset, but it has to fit that ecosystem. And each brand is very different. I don't necessarily sit on the camp of don't ever have a celebrity because you lose authenticity of brand. There's some great celebrity brands out there today. I also don't sit on it. You go, hey, let's just dump the funds to get any celebrity in there. That should come organically on the brand. And we've been very clear that, okay, we're open for any consumer, but we're not going to pay for it. And if it comes naturally, then fantastic. So it's having that right balance. You are seeing more celebrities get into this space, even on the cannabis side as well. So it's that right balance on it. But I would say as long as it's true to the brand, you should be agnostic of and open to all consumers. And a celebrity can and should be a good consumer of the brand, but it's having that right balance.
Pardon the interruption. Thank you so much for listening to Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Could you do us a favor? Hit that follow button. It makes it easier for others to find us, and it helps us climb in the rankings. Take a screenshot of the podcast, post it, tag us, and let everyone know that you listen to the Fermented Adventure podcast. Now, back to our podcast. As a consumer, I think the most important thing is authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think with an unlimited amount of money, sometimes for a celebrity, they say, oh, you know, somebody makes maybe an investment recommendation to them where they just need something else to do, maybe to solidify some additional revenue stream down the road. Or, hey, it's a vanity play, it's ego. Hey, I got my brand and I'm out there and it's something different, but I know that this is fun. But is it authentic? I just go back, Origin Holistic, Woody Harrelson's brand that
Yeah.
he's collaborating with. To
Yeah.
me, and you talk about cannabis, the two things when I think about, his lifestyle and what I would say is if Woody's into that,
Yes.
I feel like there's a connection
Yes.
versus the celebrity of the month saying, I just released a vodka or a whiskey line or something when all they did was they showed up somewhere and signed a contract.
Yeah. I
And
think
that's it.
I think you're right. I mean, it has to be authentic. I mean, I won't mention it, but I mean, there's obviously celebrities that have brands that don't drink, right? That's, like that's a gap, right? But on the flip side, I'm not like there's some brands that like Dan Aykroyd's vodka, I think is fantastic. I mean, there's some brands that actually make sense. I go back into it and say consumers are very intelligent, right? That they can get initial trial, but you're seeing, especially with millennials, especially with Gen Z, they want to understand the heritage, the authenticity, the integrity of the product. And that's where I think that gets sniffed out, right? If this is part of your larger portfolio, then yeah, that gets exposed fairly quickly. And it doesn't have the staying power, both from a consumer, but then also ultimately, where do you want to go after this? And every brand has aspirations of massive exits to all the strategics. Okay, get in line for everybody. But you have these aspirations. That's where I think you start seeing that stickiness of the consumer, or in this example, the lack thereof, starts having it. My perspective is, and you're seeing this even kind of cross over in the mixology world with certain bartenders, certain bars, certain establishments. How do you become authentic and provide that authenticity of the brand and the quality for your consumer cohorts and drive that all day long? And if it's a certain celebrity that resonates, that's connected and authentic into it, great. If not, consumers sniff out very quickly, okay, great. You have a brand, you don't drink, and it just you start seeing the tactical transactional piece of it, and you typically see incredible load in and then horrific sell through, and is typically what you see as that standard.
I appreciate that you mentioned Dan Aykroyd, who was an early adopter
Yeah.
to that celebrity endorsement, that celebrity, in that space. And I think that what happened, obviously he got there first or one of the first.
Yeah.
So he could have picked anything, but I think it resonated with his personality and his attitude about this is what I want to drink and this is what, I want you to, enjoy as well. And I think that for him, that worked perfectly.
It's an extension of what they believe and what they want to share, right? I mean, it's hard not to be romantic about this category in this space. I mean, most people can remember a time of enjoying it with friends, having a drink that they had. Most people remember their first drink. So like having that type of romantic connection is important with this category. So having a brand that comes from that heart and comes from that positioning from the celebrity, the producer, the brand house, the VC house, whatever you want to call it, that has to carry through. And I think, and like I said, I'll go back to it. I think consumers see it. Our vision directly is to be the premium brand. And if you look at mezcal, there's a few brands that have that kind of luxury positioning. So we need to be hypercritical and protective of our brand space, where if we're going to be that luxury mezcal, that prestige mezcal, we have to go in the bout of being in the right outlets, the right accounts, with the right partners that complement it to continue to carry over that theme and that authenticity. And I think when you see brands, everybody starts high, then they go really, really low. And you see that unwavering. But I think, obviously, I think Dan Aykroyd's liquid is incredible to begin with. But I think you're spot on with it's an extension of him and his ethos, his vision, and consumers carry that into that is what you see.
All right, Matthew, let's get romantic. I have not had any of this mezcal yet, and
Okay.
we've held off for a week or two, waiting
Yeah.
for this opportunity to speak with you. So this will
Okay.
be our first time and getting to try it with you. We have the Ensemble 4 and the Espadine. Which
Yep.
one would you recommend starting with?
So what I typically like to do is start with the Espadine, and I'll kind of give you a few pieces. Well, let's try it, and then I can give you kind of my notes after it. So we'll start with the Espadine first. This is your standard Espadine, double distilled copper. Our batches are always going to be more of the smaller batches. You'll get the notes, and like I said, I won't lead the witness. Let's try it, and then I can give you kind of my notes, and you can tell me if you agree or don't agree. If you want a good party trick, take a sip, sit the cup off to the side for 30 minutes or so, and come back to it, and you should still smell that right, rich agave scent, and you'll still hold that in there.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pause the podcast right now. You and
Okay.
I will go out bat our day for the next 30 minutes, and we'll come back and talk about it. How's that?
It's fine.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to do this shameless plug because I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
But this portion of the Fermented Adventure podcast is brought to you by Scott Wishart and Scott's Mini Woodshop, and he provided our Glen Karen for this episode. So thanks, Scott. Now, to your introduction, you're not going to lead me, but what I get on the nose is I get that appreciation for the smokiness that I love in a mezcal, but this is not a campfire. And what's really pronounced is this citrus, this lime that I get from this, as well as that succulent, that unctuous agave that I really want to have.
Yes.
It says to me, all right, I could be wrong. I want to be right, but there's no additives, there's no derivatives in here. And this is what I want to have just based on my experience, because I'll go to a bar and I'll say, all right, what would you recommend?
Yeah.
And I'm so disappointed in that first nose that leads me to say, what did they do to this and what wasn't quality? This screams quality right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, we take pride in it where we're purposely agave forward, we're unaged, and when we're distilled to proof, right? So if you look at our Espadin, we'll have slight variations of each batch proof. I think the one that you have in front of you is 43.4%. We would range anywhere from 42 to 44, 45% of our proof. So we're not, how it comes out is how it gets bottled, right? We're small batch. We're typically anywhere from 8 to 1,000 liters per batch. As you can see, even on the side, and you'll have some notes of more of a whiskey barrel and bottle. Each bottle is hand signed in each of our maestro, and then hand labeled in terms of the batch size. So we're purposely looking to be that artisanal craft. And what you get from that are these different nuances. And I won't say, I mean, I'll keep this as a general comment. I mean, when you see different spirits on the shelf at different price points, yeah, some of them are pretty hot and they got some kick to them. And it's just one note of power. I would say where we're seeing most of our consumers are kind of broken into two categories. Obviously, well-educated mezcal drinkers and agave drinkers, but we're seeing a tremendous amount of consumers come, stay, and become very loyal from your single malt Scotch drinkers, your heavy bourbon drinkers, because they want that depth and complexity. And as you know, or I'll share. I mean, there's with tequila you get one agave. With mezcal, you can use any of the agaves that you have, so you get that richness of variety of it. What we're told a tremendous amount of time is, our mezcal is very complex, and it's not your typical mezcal where it just hits you in the mouth and hits you in the face and you get that like, oh yeah, this is just straight smoke. We see most of ours in sipping occasions because it's targeting that reflectiveness of, okay, I like a single malt Scotch, I like the depth, I like the complexity, and it's not just a one note kind of hit you smokiness. It is what we're seeing.
One point that you said to me that becomes exciting as a consumer is the proof could change. So if I see this on the shelf, and as you pointed out, this is 43.4, and I see something that might be a lower proof or slightly higher proof,
Yep.
Now I'm curious to see those side by side. The model or idea for Corte Vetusto wasn't it's got to be this same proof every single time, because I think what you're going to find is that distiller
Yeah.
is going to stop and say, this is the best representation of the
Yes.
agave, of our distillation, of who we stand for as this brand.
Yes, and look, I mean, our characteristic of success is, we have great partners, right? We have a great team here, but we have two, excuse me, two maestros, but that Corte has been using since, late 17, right? And I don't know how to make mezcal. I mean, I know functionally how it works, but I'm not the distiller, I'm not the maestro. So I come from the world of the people who know, like, give them free reign to do what they do best until they can't, right? But give them free reign, and that's why we want ours to come out as the perfect expression, right? Corte Vetusto means ancient cut, right? So we're following true to the ancient structure, how they're producing it, how they're distilling it, and we're not tinkering it on top just to get to a special number. I mean, for consistency, we like it to be as consistent as possible, and you'll typically see a 1.5 to or so swing on it. But it's, to your point, it's they're the expert. They just, like, what comes out, it's, since we're unaged and we're distilled to proof, comes out as the perfect expression of the agave at the time.
Tasting on this, the first thing, and I've not had this experience before, I get sweet, but I literally get sugarcane as that sweetness base.
Yeah.
Normally I'll get, let's say, a honey or a butterscotch and just different nuances of what presents as being sweet. But this to me is just raw sugarcane. And my experience with this is I'm getting savory, I'm getting mint, I'm getting thyme. I get that, again, that juiciness of the agave, which I like, this cucumber note to this. And it's fun because as a mezcal, everything I want from here is in the finish, where you're going to get that smokiness. I also got this licorice note, almost in a way like an absinthe.
Interesting.
That brought me to a place where I didn't expect to have that. And then I'm starting to think, all right, what cocktails can we play with this, knowing that it might have that kind of pronunciation? Can you do like a mezcal, air quotes, Negroni or something like that? So you talked about the bartenders, those that are making these cocktails utilizing the Corte Vetusto. What are some of the cocktails you've seen out there being made?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, to come back on the notes, I mean, what this reads for me, and I'll emphasize, I was not like a mezcal aficionado prior to this, was very earthy, but for me, very like the dry and almost like fruit pie, like that fruitiness into it. So you're really getting that crushed agave. I will emphasize our fire is all used from reclaimed wood. So we're just not chopping down trees. It's all from a certified reclaimed wood of the mesquite. So for me, this reads almost very, very light. I mean, what we get told, a lot of people is saying, hey, this is very complex, but this is not like mezcal. Like, this is not overly smoky, overly proof, like hot. Like, you see that depth and range in there. One of my favorite cocktails is a Negroni. And what I like about ours is you still have that bite where, I mean, as you know, a Campari is very overpowering. Like, if I would make a Negroni, I typically cut the Campari in half. With here, like, you still get that complexity of that bite, where it does stand up, where it's not just getting overpowered by the Campari. We see obviously a lot of highballs that allow you to really still experience that range of complement of the agave. When we had our event in Italy, we made a Naked and Famous, which was chartreuse in our Espadine, and was absolutely fantastic. I'm not a big fan of it generally, like the espresso martini. But our bartender who leads bartender for Roccaforte Hotels, who's one of our partners, and we're in his hotels, he made a mezcal espresso martini. And I was like, oh, this is I mean, it's not my cup of tea. I like coffee and I like mezcal separate. But I mean, it was fantastic because it still cuts through the other ingredients and it still cuts through so you can taste it. And it's a pleasant experience because it adds to that range and that depth within the product.
Where I would see this being very nice in a mezcal martini or an espresso martini is there's a bitterness component. And you go back to, all right, where do I bring in Amaro like Campari into this? And in my mind, I'm wondering, how would this play with the Nocino? You get some walnut components, maybe adding some creaminess to it, and maybe going a little bit in a different direction.
Yes.
You can start to play. And that's the fun. And I think the basis of what this offers is that you're not, all right, all I can do with this in some cases is all I'm going to do is make like a mezcal old fashioned.
Yeah.
Because what else can I do with it? You know?
Yeah. Agreed.
But the most important thing that my experience, Matthew, with this and our, conversation today is I could just sip this.
Yes. Yes.
And that's really, I think, at the heart of what it is this is something you just want to sip.
Right.
And you talk about introducing this to whiskey drinkers. And I think what I'm learning and what I understand more is, yeah, you could be a hardcore bourbon. You could be a hardcore Scotch, Irish whiskey, whatever it is. But maybe sometimes take a step back and introduce things like this mezcal because it refines, it reinvigorates your palate. And you can start bringing in and out of things that you may not have experienced. And you're going to find, I love mezcal. I mean, if you're drinking Lefroy, are you not drinking mezcal? And why wouldn't you be?
Yeah. I mean, it's you've moved past the day of, hey, I'm going to have a margarita that I want smoky and I want guac and chips and I want to go, hang out and party all night. Like where we're seeing it is, people, especially, and look, if you want a near category, you're seeing it with Reposado today. I mean, Reposado is booming from a tequila perspective because while it's still single agave, people like different notes. Like everybody's picking up different notes in the finishing piece of it. So my view is, look, if you're drinking spirits, especially at a decent price point, you typically like complexity. You typically like a range that you can experience. And again, where we've seen with actually, I think the bulk of our consumers are coming from single malt Scotch and those high bourbons, is they like those ranges of depth where it's not a single note of just smoke. It's not a single note of just agave. They're seeing and appreciating that complexity in that range where, yeah, to your point, it's a great sipping experience. Where we're seeing success is, in smoking lounges where it's sipping. You're seeing success in different areas where it complements that environment. Where I've had so many people say, no, I don't drink mezcal because everybody sees that margarita and guac and chips mentality, and then they try it. They're like, oh, what is this? This is like you kind of see that range, and it's not saying like everybody has to be an expert, but everybody can appreciate the different ranges in there. And I think it's a good segue is when you go into that Ensemble 4, you see a really nice stretch on what can agave be and what can mezcal look like, because it gives you just such a different range where you're just not playing with a base and just playing with either the finishing, the aging, etc. You get that wide range of experience, which again, I think really complements what a consumer is looking for, both in a cocktail, but also from a sipping perspective.
Ensemble 4, I pronounced it initially ensemble. Thank you. But so was there an Ensemble 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah. So this was our take on basically your seasonal rotation, like your seasonal in and out. What's produced is produced in really forever. So the Ensemble 4, to answer your question, yes, the Ensemble 3 is in Europe. And the Ensemble 2 was split between it, but this was our yearly kind of, let's say, our Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory mix of ensembling and putting a collection of specific agaves. We have an Ensemble 5 that is with 5 agaves. So that kind of gives you the theme. I think that will probably be our max. And we'll just cut different ratios of it. But one of the things, and there's a couple nuances to this, and this won't give away your tasting experience. If you look on the side where we have our signature, our Maestro signature, we have the split of the agaves used. So we're using Espadin, which is what you just tried, Tobola, which is wild agave, and a Tepezate, which is again is a different strain of agave. Those all give different characteristics of both flavor and scent into the agave. And what we see is, and with the ensemble, we're always going to be equal splits. So we're equal parts Espadin, Tobola, and Tepezante. Where you've seen in the past is, people will do an ensemble and they'll have, 1% something else and so called an ensemble. Ours are always going to be at least a minimum of a third. So what this is our concoction, right? The other thing that we do unique in this process is we're still double distilled, but our second distillation are in clay pots. So our copper pots are first, and they're 250-liter copper pots. Our second distillation are in 70-liter clay pots. And what that does, it naturally opens up a different aroma, a different scent, a different profile of complexity. And this one, I would say, just won gold in San Francisco. And we generally don't put these out there because they're just rotational. But you're seeing kind of the range that this has. This, to me, in a highball is fantastic. You'll see it. It's going to be a very different range and a different experience than the Espadin, which also justifies, why we want to have a range of very curated, very specific mezcals that gives consumer a range where you're not just taking different samples of the same thing.
The nose, for me, I got this lemon verbena.
Oh, interesting.
More
Yeah.
so than the lime. I got lemon on this one. And then I've got this experience. They smell, the nose is like mums, chrysanthemums.
Okay. Yeah,
There's an earthiness to this. There's this wonderful, there's a scent here that it's something. It's like that umami, but I don't know what it is. And it keeps coming in and out.
Yep.
And there's a peppery note. There's this black pepper note to this on the nose. This is just a wonderful journey through all three of these different agaves, because I think what it does is it provides how are all these going to play together in the sandbox,
Yes.
and what are you going to get once this is all brought together?
Correct. Yes. And I would say, again, what's unique for our process is our second distillations in clay pots. You typically only see that on the ancestral type agave, which are only clay pots. We've brought that forward onto our process here. So you get that different note of just different range. This one, obviously, with the clay and the Tepezante, gives you a much earthier, almost tanniny range. I would say, what I'm, obviously I have many reasons why I'm investing into this and excited about this brand, but, it's easy to go down rabbit holes of all the different agaves. And I would say, even from my palate, some of them are quite direct. This, we want to make sure that we're really leveraging our range and our Maestro's range, but in a way that's acceptable and applicable to the consumers. When we have this, people do kind of the take where they'll look at it, they'll sample it, they can smell that richness of the earth, they can smell that tanniny almost, and then you can see them hit multiple levels. I mean, I'll give you a good example. Like when we were in Italy, for the Super Car Owner Circle, 90% of the members there obviously have crazy cars like Paganis, Zondas, Bugattis, the Lamborghinis were okay, no, we don't have those here, we have these. And you saw everybody kind of look at it, and I would say 90% of it were Asian, Middle East, and European members. So everybody did this. They smelt it, and they're curious, and they're bracing themselves as the taste, and then they taste it, and they're waiting for the punch, and they kind of do this, and they're like this, and they look at it again, and they taste it again, and oh, this is you can see that everybody's bracing for the harshness of mezcal. But you can see that range of what they're experiencing on that range of notes and that complexity of notes.
What you give me is a lot of curiosity to their expectation, because if you had not told them this was mezcal and you put a liquid in front of them, how would they approach it then? And in the mind, because now you visually expected what you're going to get from what you believe a mezcal is,
Yes.
to there might not be that hesitation, because on the nose, I don't get that there's going to be this proofiness, there's going to be this punch. I can certainly, expect something, but what I get is this lemon effervescence first.
Yep.
And then I start to get into such a richness of that earthy quality. And I'm still pulling out that licorice, that absinthe that I have. And then it's just this wonderful, I got a little smokiness and I can live with this. I could certainly see pairing both of these with cigars, even with pipe tobacco, because I'm not going to get this overwhelming thing from either side.
Correct. We're seeing success also as we're now, obviously relaunched in the US, is finding these on dessert menus, right? I mean, if you have your cognacs, I mean, this is a great complement for the dessert menu. And it's interesting you say that. I mean, I'm in the market quite a bit. It'd be interesting to do a tasting without telling whether the customer, the buyer, the retailer, it's mezcal, because you're right, everybody has, and and I'll talk Georgia. So Georgia is one of our markets. Obviously, it's proximity. But we are in Georgia, and we're only targeting some of, the range on here. I mean, this is prestige pricing, is being at the certain outlets, and everybody says, okay, there's a lot of agave, there's a lot of mezcal, until they try it. And so far, every place we've been to has taken the full range, especially, the week before, the New Year's. So we're seeing that. It's a good thing. I'll use that next time, just to do a blind tasting, just to get because you see everybody, when you say mezcal, they kind of they either had a really good one or a really bad one. Like they have a perception. And then when they take this, like we had our event last week in New York for relaunching in New York. And one of the head buyers said, okay, this is mezcal for non-mezcal drinkers. I mean, this tastes incredibly well. Like, this is great breath of a mezcal, but it's not overpowering like you typically think of a mezcal. So yeah, I'm going to try that next time and just blind taste, see what they say. It's a good one. I'm going to use that. I'm going to borrow.
I will also say this is a mezcal for a gin drinker, because my first cocktail that I thought about was, I really love a bee's knees. And bringing honey into this, bringing that citrus component into this, for me, I think that amplifies the components of the mezcal as well. These are two superior, delicious mezcals. Now, are there other things? We talked about the Ensemble 4. Maybe there's an Ensemble 5 that, might hit our shelves somewhere not in Pennsylvania, because we don't get anything good.
We have so our range, so we have a Tobola in our core range. That's we're labeling right now in Oaxaca. So we're actually moving that here probably in the beginning of the year. So that would round out our core range. We have a more of a specialty range, which is our ancestral. Now those are they're clay distilled. I'll send you a bottle. They're very, like, the MSRP is around $300. And they're true small batch, nano batch, anywhere from 200 to 300 liters, and they're doubles distilled in clay. For reference, two of our key partners in the UK, Harrods and Berry Brothers, your two kind of prestigious outlets, they buy each of them on exclusive. So they run specifically this agave mix, like our Ensemble and Harrods, and our other one in Berry Brothers. So this is like your aficionado type lens. I love them. I mean, it's sacrilege. I'm sure, maybe my co-founder would roll over his eyes. I like some of them in cocktails like a highball, because you still carry that incredible depth of the range. And we're working on a very special one, probably in the beginning of the year. I won't share too much about it, but it'll be very unique to what you see in the market today. I'll send you a little sneak peek of it, but where we're really trying to leverage is the range that we can capture with mezcal and specifically agaves, and really leverage that as that elegant experience, that prestige experience, where we're not just chasing, palomas and margaritas, which are obviously very good in, but we're having this more of a sipping kind of luxury component of it. And like I said, if you want a good party trick, come back to your cups and just smell, and you should still smell that great agave even 20, 30 minutes afterwards. Like it's never left.
It's interesting how you make reference to those Mexican cocktails that we all think about when we think about a tequila or a mezcal or anything regarding the location of where all this is coming from. In my mind, I'm not even there. That didn't even resonate with me. And I think as you were talking about, look, unfortunately, we're recording this on the 23rd of December, and this comes out on Christmas Eve, because sometimes people say, what do I get somebody as a gift when I think they have had everything, or I don't know what to get somebody? This is a perfect standout gift. And you're giving them an experience unlike something, if they've had mezcal, that they've ever really had before. And then they can share it with friends, and people can kind of take a double take and go, wow, this is just so unique. But the other part about it is, whatever price point these two bottles have, to me, these could be daily sippers. These could just be something you incorporate that you don't have to have as a trophy on the shelf. And there are those things where people put trophies on shelves. I'm one of them. I kind of look the other way when somebody's grabbing that bottle that I'm like thinking, go easy on that. But knowing that this is the quality coming out every single expression, I'm okay with draining a bottle, knowing that I'm going to get that high level the next time too.
And that's what was so important. I mean, if we go back to the acquisition, it was so important for me. Is like, look, we have incredible liquid, incredible positioning, incredible team. Like, my role is simple. My role is to help support and drive it as much as we can. And we've seen some incredible movement already this year so far. We're in Italy. We relaunched Italy. We're in now relaunching in the US. We brought in some sponsors. So like my role is, how do we get this incredible product that was built by an incredible team out as much as we can so everybody can enjoy it? And, there's always going to be a ceiling, right? And I'm happy with the ceiling on this product, because well, from a production side, we can't be everywhere. So we're not going to be in this scenario where we're, in every single corner, because we want to have that type of premium positioning where the consumers resonate the most with it. So for me, like, it's quite simple. I need to support, and we need to drive the growth and drive the support, because your point, it's easy to fall in love with the different varieties of this. And it's, but how do we make sure we provide the structure, the support, and the infrastructure on my side to get such an award-winning, incredible brand in the market for everybody, accessibly for everybody?
Where do people find this in the United States? Where is it distributed?
So we're online. We're online first off. So we do have an online store where we are shipping through across 43 of the states. We have an incredible partner called Ico Brands out here in Georgia, who's taken over the product as nationwide distribution. So our targeted focus purely from just making sure we have the right supply. In the U.S., we're targeting in Georgia, New York, obviously California, because we have some legacy accounts in there, but you see us kind of spread across into Florida, Texas, Arizona, and a few of the other states, just as this first wave in 2025. But today, from a live perspective, we're in Georgia, New York, which we just launched both of them about a month ago. So fresh. Internationally, UK is where the brand was born. So we have good placements across the UK. We're in outlets like I said, Harrods and Berry Brothers. But if you're in the cocktail lounge, like the Fitzroy Kimpton just had a feature with us, the Savoy, St. James, the American Bar, Thailand, Taiwan, Australia, and Italy are kind of our core markets that we're targeting and that we're in today.
I just want to start planning a geographic tour of where Corte Vetusto is being poured and cocktails are being made. Just going to travel throughout the country and the world and find out where I can get these great cocktails and just enjoy what other minds or creativity somebody else is putting out. Yeah. Matthew, is there anything we haven't spoken about today on the podcast? Anything you want the listeners to know more about you or Corte Vetusto Mezcal?
No, I mean, I think this was great, and it's always good to have a sample as well. I'm really excited about this. I think I'll go back to it. The first testament of, okay, you see so many investors come in and want to change everything. Again, my role is simple here. How do we inject the resources, capital, and expertise to help grow it? I think that's a good scenario that says, okay, is this a good investment? Is this a good brand? Do you stand by it? So for me, I'm incredibly excited about it. Obviously, I like to say it's the shining star, no pun intended, on the Christmas tree for my brand group. But we're incredibly excited about it, and I think it's just the beginning.
Well, just the beginning. Matthew, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for being on the Fermented Adventure podcast and being our friend. And wow, this is just a wonderful experience. Look, if you want something unique, something different, you want to just try something to make your palate go, what the heck is that? Find this on the shelves. And if your store, local liquor store doesn't have it, ask for it by name. They always say that. And Matthew, thank you so much. I can't wait to speak to you again and see what other amazing products you have to introduce to our palates in our world.
Appreciate it, Rich. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.